Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
These are the cards that I have drawn, that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
But you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this?
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
Hello and welcome to the July 24th edition of the Bubb Report. Last week, Grenada continued its preparations for the build-up to Spice Mass 2022. The stage has been set for the staging of the Groovy and Soca Monarch finals respectively, and Calypsonians selected for the Calypso semi-finals competition will be facing the judges today as they vie to dethrone the reigning monarch of Calypso in Grenada, the Sour Serpent. The carnival calendar is, however, not only defined by the cultural events of this period. As Emancipation Day is on August 1st, both Grenada's Reparations Committee as well as the Institute for People's Enlightenment will be holding events to commemorate our ancestral freedom from the shackles of colonialism and slavery. This year, the Institute for People's Enlightenment, in collaboration with the University of West Indies Open Campus, would host its annual Emancipation Lecture under the theme Orality and Traditional Mass of Grenada with guest lecturer Dr. Tola Debiri. Also on the weekend of Emancipation, Jambalasi Grenada will be hosting the first ever Jambalasi Festival at Victoria Park in St. Andrew under the theme A Celebration of Grenada's Jab Jab Culture. And after a 2-year hiatus, the Carriacou Regatta Festival returns. The festival is the longest-running regatta since its inception in 1965 in the Caribbean. The islands of Carriacou and Petite Martinique is world famous for its boat-building tradition, and the festival highlights the beautifully crafted boats on the islands. On-shore activities for the Regatta Festival include donkey racing, the greasy pole, street parties, delicious food, and other events.
So we are experiencing some displeasure with how they have treated us. They have disguised themselves as wolves in cheap clothing.
The PDP is asking you because you have seen what those people in red have done with money for the last 20 years. Tobago had to be crazy to give them their 10%.
A pleasant good morning to all our viewers and listeners, and we welcome you to yet another edition of the Bubb Report. Now, the 2022 World Athletics Championships in Eugene, Oregon are almost over, and most of us, if not all of us in Grenada and the Caribbean, are today feeling a tremendous sense of joy and accomplishment at what our athletes have been able to achieve. In a sense, our athletes have made others who were once a force to reckon with, particularly on the track, stand up and take note. We here at the Bubb Report takes note of Kirani James's continued remarkable performance as one of resilience, given his health battles. For those who are keeping score, James won the 400 meter at the World Championships in 2011 and in the 2012 London Olympics. In the 400 meters, James also won the silver medal at the 2016 Rio Olympics and the bronze medal at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, giving him an Olympic medal at every level. Additionally, James's silver medal at the World Athletics Championships, in addition to his wins at the Diamond League, arguably makes James the GOAT. No sportsman or woman in Grenada has achieved his status or excellence, and it would not be an easy task to find a match in this category globally. The legend's performance and legacy fit precisely into the phenomenal description. Anderson Peters, a fellow St. Davesian, who also deserves great commendation for his continued record-breaking performances at the World Athletic Champions. Anderson Peters became only the second man in history to defend his world's gold with a 90.5 meter throw, setting him up for a stellar success in future athletic meets. Lyndon Victor also gave an excellent account of himself and on behalf of his country at this weekend's event. Not all of us have the talent and discipline to be Kirani James or Anderson Peters. Still, the potential impact of sports in our lives is just as relevant. In the declaration of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the United Nations recognizes sports as a tool for development. We here at the Bubb Report agrees with the Inter-American Development Bank when they say that sports promote skills such as communication, conflict resolution, discipline, respect, self-development, and teamwork. Stimulating these skills in our youth enhances development objectives such as school attainment, health, and peace. Furthermore, initiatives and projects that encourage the practice of sports have shown to have impacts on the communities where they operate, preventing violence and favoring social inclusion. In her previous blog post for Caribbean Development Trends, Heather Sutton discussed how crime and violence are issues of concern for policymakers and citizens in the Caribbean. How can Caribbean people and their authorities tackle these issues, she asks. While sports might not be the only needed response, it represents a cost-effective solution that can improve lives in schools, homes, jobs, and communities. In fact, most Caribbean countries have implemented public policies that promote sports from an early age. However, implementing sports as a public policy requirement requires the support of everyone in the community. And at this point, the Bubb Report therefore takes this time to congratulate our Grenadian and Caribbean athletes for an amazing representation at this year's World Athletics Championships. And at this point, I wish to welcome our first guest for this morning's installment of the Bubb Report, and she is Dr. Faith B. Israel of the Tobago House of Assembly. She is part of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. I hope I'm getting that correct, Dr. Israel. And we want to welcome you to the report. We were certainly trying to track down the Chief Secretary, but we understand that all of you, in fact, have busy schedules. So we do thank you for making the time to appear on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's an honor being here.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Israel, the first question I have for you is, how would you assess the PDP's performance in your 7 months in office? You campaigned on ensuring that Tobago can get robust autonomy within the local government structure in Tobago. Are you meeting those scores?
So the Tobago House of Assembly is an organization or an entity that has been around for about 40 years. The cry for autonomy for Tobago started way back then, and it is a process that is continuing. The Progressive Democratic Patriots, as you rightly said, has been in governance in Tobago for the last, since December 6th was the election we got inaugurated and started work officially, and I think the 13th of December. So it's really been 7 months of hard work because we are in essence building an organization from scratch, building an island from scratch. That includes coming in and, in essence, getting a clear picture of what is actually, or what has actually been happening on the island, because the other party ruled the island for over 21 years, and we know what happens when you have that length of rule, in terms of what was happening with the books and what was happening with the projects and so forth. So we've spent the time doing that kind of critical assessment, learning about what is actually happening on the ground, and we have started implementing many of our mandate items. You are right, I am the one responsible for health, wellness, and social protection, and I came in specifically in the middle of the pandemic. As a matter of fact, the month that I came in was probably the month that we had the highest deaths related to COVID in Tobago, and we were able to bring that under control, and we were able to give the workers a sense of commitment and a sense of we love you, even though you've been going through these last 2 years very difficult with some of the policies that we have done there. So I think I am actually quite satisfied. I remind myself that the speed at which things happen within the public service is not as fast as anyone wants it to happen. So, there are times where we are highly frustrated at how much time it is taking to do some of the things we want to do. But I think that we are satisfied, and I think that the people on the ground are satisfied that we've done quite a bit, even in the short space of time we've been there.
One of the things that stood out to me was a decolonizing policy of yours, which I really celebrated as someone who operates in the decolonization space, and that was decolonizing dress code in government ministries. Talk to us about the decision to decolonize dress code. I mean, over in Grenada, you still have these very strict modes of dress, and I call it respectability politics. But in Tobago, you said, we're getting rid of that. Talk to us about the decision that went into that.
Well, that was an easy one. We live in the Caribbean. The Caribbean is hot. There are many days we leave our homes with sleeveless tops and with short pants, because that is what the weather, requires us to do. And then we may be in an area where we need to then go into a government building. You should not be forced to have to go home or have to find clothes because you now need to go into a government building because you're wearing a sleeveless top or a short pants or a short skirt or something like that. So it was actually one of the easiest decisions that we've had to make, and it was the easiest to implement. We basically just said there are no dress code rules as long as people show up to the facility, as long as they show up to the government office. You must let them in. You must serve them regardless of what they are wearing. So you don't have to tell them you have to go back out and cover your sleeves or anything like that. That was the easiest because it was just a stroke of the pen. We told them to pull down those signs and just allow people to come in and get served.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the campaign issues for PDP, again, goes back to the issue of autonomy. A lot of Caribbean countries struggle with notions of local government, and you were able to draw comparisons with a number of local boroughs in Tobago. For example, you said that the Point Fortin borough, for example, they had their own autonomy, strong autonomy there with respect to policing, with respect to crime and punishment issues. But that Tobago did not have that. Is it that Tobago is sometimes seen as that stepchild or that afterthought of the bigger island?
In many instances, we do feel like we are the stepchild. We do feel like we are not even the stepchild, the outside child, in Caribbean language. But, I think that we need to be clear, and I'm happy that you raised that specific example. It means you guys are really paying attention to what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, we have a thing that the Tobago House of Assembly Act gives the Tobago House of Assembly quite a lot of responsibility and a lot of autonomy all in and of itself. But what you identified related to the fact that the current version of the autonomy that we have does not allow us to make laws that do not still need to go to Parliament to be passed. So let's say in Tobago, we need to do a law about policing, for example. We need to have a Tobago police service on the island. For us to do that, we have to pass a quote-unquote Tobago law in the Tobago House of Assembly, Assembly Legislature. But after that is passed in our Assembly Legislature in Tobago, we then have to send it to Cabinet in Trinidad. Cabinet decides whether it goes to Parliament. Parliament then has to debate on it and agree on it. And only if it is passed in Parliament will that become a law of Trinidad and Tobago. And what we are saying is that there are municipalities in Trinidad that currently need to do they do their own law, they do their own bill, and then when it is passed in the municipality, they just send it directly to the president for him or her to sign, and Tobago should be given the same kind of ability, particularly if it relates to something that specifically affects Tobago and does not affect Trinidad in that way. We should have the opportunity to make that change in Tobago, make that law in Tobago, because we are the ones that are affected by it, and not go through that long circuitous route that usually ends in nothing happening, to be honest. By the way, a couple years ago, they did try to do exactly that, get a Tobago police service, and we are still waiting for the cabinet and the parliament to go through the process to get it.
Now, on the political side of things, I noticed that the PDP seems to be spreading its wings. You guys recently opened some offices in mainland Trinidad, a headquarters in Trinidad, or a sub office in Trinidad. Can you talk to us about that?
Certainly. So we're doing two things, two very different things. One is a political component and the other one is a governance component. Because Trinidad and Tobago is one country, there are Tobagonians living in Trinidad, there are Trinidadians, quote unquote, living in Tobago. On the governance side, we've actually started setting up, in essence, what would be almost like a Tobago house or a Tobago embassy in Trinidad that will allow us to identify Tobagonians who need services that the Tobago House of Assembly function is able to provide. That we would be in contact with our Tobago folks in Trinidad, that we can market Tobago specific produce in Trinidad and get them into that larger market, so that we can get a direct foreign investment and so forth through that office as well. So on the governance side, the office of the Deputy Chief Secretary is now responsible for setting up that kind of embassy, to use, I can't think of a better term right now, so that we have that link with the Tobagonians who are in Trinidad and with the Trinidadians who need to have a link directly to the Tobago House of Assembly. That is happening there. But on the political side, that relates to the governance side. On the political side of it, we do also recognize that for us to get the greater autonomy that we have been pushing for, we need to spend some time educating our Trinidadian brothers and sisters, having them understand that what we're asking for is not separation. What we're asking for is to not, move away from you and take from you or anything like that. What we are asking for is to allow us the ability to develop and to grow and to flourish the way we would like to. And if we flourish and we develop and we grow that way, the entire country, Trinidad and Tobago, flourishes and grows. So on the political side, we are pushing to have that kind of voice in Trinidad as well, because that also helps us on the local side in Tobago, because we need Trinidad and Tobago to be a part of that process to get us that greater autonomy that's needed.
Absolutely. And let us talk about your chief secretary. That's Mr. Farley Augustine. He really surprised the PNM coming out of that deadlock, because there was a deadlock before that, and then you had an expansion of the seats. How was your team with Mr. Augustine and so on able to rise to the occasion of that expanded Tobago House of Assembly configuration? Because before it was a 6-seat configuration, correct? So yes, go ahead.
So yes, you are right. In January, we had 2 whole elections in one year, one calendar year. We had one in January, and at that time we had 12 seats. And what happened is that PDP got 6 of those seats. The PNM got the other 6 of those seats. We did not have a mechanism already built into our legislature to allow us to break that tie. So we went into that deadlock. We could not agree, so we were forced to have another election. One of the things the central government did did was, instead of going with the 12 seats, which could have gone, the same way again, they went with 15 seats. So they reconfigured the zones to allow the 12 to become 15. Assemblyman Farley, who is the chief sec, our leader, has done a fantastic job of leading this team into that election and the election before that. What happened is that the people on the ground in Tobago recognized that, one, they already knew the kind of governance that those on the other side gave. We came out of 21 years of their kind of governance, and they knew that they were not happy with that kind of governance. And they also saw what happened during the period where we had 6-6, that deadlock, where those who were in government simply refused to allow the 6 of us who were, quote unquote, on the outside of government to be a part of that process. And Tobagonians did not like that. They didn't like how that felt. It just didn't sound right. It didn't sit well with Tobagonians. So when they had the opportunity to vote again, it was resounding. It was almost a clean sweep. As a matter of fact, the one seat that we lost was lost by 2 or 3 or 4 votes, I think, is a difference. So it was very, very, very close, even for the one seat that we did not regain out of those 15. I am really, really proud of the chief secretary, because it's a young guy, much younger than I am, as a matter of fact. But I look up to him because he comes with such immense leadership qualities that is exactly what Tobagonians needed, and that is what we are pushing with. And I see you guys did something very similar recently, pushing for the younger person to finally take the reins of power, to finally get there, to say, okay, allow the young people them an opportunity to do what we need to do for our future.
Absolutely. Now let us turn to your specific area of responsibility, Dr. Baisrell, which is health and wellness. And as you know, recently the World Health Organization just declared monkeypox a global emergency, which I find as very interesting, given that monkeypox existed in Africa, but it was not considered an emergency then. So I find that a bit curious, that now that it's affecting the developed world, it's suddenly an emergency. But I digress. What measures is Tobago putting in place for any eventuality of an outbreak of monkeypox?
So let me actually go back to the point that you digressed about. I think it's important to understand that these terms actually have very specific meaning. So yes, monkeypox has been endemic, meaning there are countries, there are 4 or 5 countries in Africa, in Central and Western Africa, where monkeypox is a normal thing, everyday thing, kind of. There are cases there all the time. The fact that it has gone to other countries is really what makes it a public health concern, that it has moved from where it normally is and is now spreading. And even if you go to the concept of a pandemic, because you recognize the World Health Organization has not claimed it as a pandemic yet, because a pandemic means there are cases in every single country, in every single region. Right now, there are a lot of cases in a lot of countries where we usually do not get monkeypox. So that is why we now have the designation that we are at now. My team in Tobago have actually been working quite well. The good thing is that coming out of COVID, we learned about what worked and what didn't work in an infectious disease kind of situation. So we've been tweaking our policies that we used for COVID to have them used for monkeypox. We are actually going with a 3I philosophy. The 3I philosophy is, one, our healthcare professionals have actually been going through intense training over the last couple days, the last couple weeks actually, to, one, identify what cases of monkeypox looks like. So if somebody comes to you, to the clinic, to the hospital, to the health center, one, you need to identify that this is monkeypox. And we actually have one of the best infectious disease specialists on the island who was actually treating monkeypox, a Tobagonian who coincidentally has returned to Tobago and is running one of our hospitals now. So the first I that we are working with is identify. The second I is to isolate. So we do have a policy that says if somebody has monkeypox, we need to keep them separate from everyone else. That is what we did with COVID. So we are just ramping up that system. And the third I is to identify. The third I is to inform the office of the CMOH, those people who are able to pull the data, those people who are able to do the contact tracing and that kind of thing. So that is what we have been working with on the ground now. And our main aim really has been to get our health professionals up to speed so that they can identify it if they see it. We've also started doing some public education so that individuals on the ground, if they see something on their hand or their skin or wherever, particularly if they have a history of travel and so forth, then they need to know what to look for, what to do. And that's what we've been doing thus far.
Absolutely. So you in essence, what I'm hearing here is that you are preparing, you are putting the infrastructure in place for that to happen. With respect to COVID, we continue to see the emergence of different variants. We now have the BA.5 variant, which is considered relatively more severe, but it's not really causing as much death. It is causing hospitalizations. It's affecting. So you have a lot of these moving parts with respect to COVID still, and it's still a global public health emergency according to the World Health Organization. How different is your administration's strategy to central government in Trinidad and Tobago with respect to how you are managing the COVID crisis over there in Tobago?
Well, I don't know that the strategy is very different in terms of the actual treatment of patients and so forth. I think we have the benefit of having a smaller community in and of itself. We have a confined space as in an island in and of itself. We also have the blessing of being so closely knit that we can identify contacts very quickly. That is actually something that I think works to our benefit. And we also have a group of health professionals who have been doing their utmost best. I actually think we have some of the best and the brightest on the island doing what they know they need to do. So we've been relatively successful. Of course, in the earlies, there were hiccups. In the earlies, there were significant issues that we needed to work out. Having come in at the later, meaning I just came in as secretary with responsibility for health, wellness, and social protection in December. I came in having spent the 2 years before looking and learning and doing quite a bit of the public education that needed to happen in the space anyway. So I came in with that knowledge, and I came in with that understanding of us ramping up a little bit what we needed to do and continuing to implement those policies. So it's just a matter. I think we are at the point now. BA.5 is, yes, it is more infectious. It is not necessarily more severe. For example, it's nowhere close to what Delta was giving us in November, December, where people were really getting very, very sick and dying. It's nowhere close to that, thank God. It is a little bit more infectious, meaning more people are actually getting sick. But our experience in Trinidad and Tobago thus far is that we are not really seeing the high rates of hospitalization or severe illness as it relates to BA.5. So we are hoping that means as the variants evolve, and variants are what, that's what a virus does. It mutates and it changes its format. As that happens, we are hoping, like most others, that it actually gets weaker, that we develop more immunity against it, and that it kind of just fades away after a while.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what are some other areas of health? Because again, we are in a pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, but other health issues do not go away. We still have issues with respect to lifestyle diseases in the Caribbean. We still have issues with respect to gastroenteritis. There is an outbreak now in Grenada, for example. You have issues with respect to mosquito breeding and what that brings, right? So what are some other health priorities of yours, Madam
Secretary. So, by the way, yes, so that is actually one thing I wanted to correct. In the Tobago space, the elected officials are actually assemblymen. So I'm an assemblyman, and our selected individuals are councillors. So we have 3 councillors and we have assemblymen. So yes. That's all right. Because it's a term that we use very loosely in different areas, have different meanings. Yes, so that's quite all right. As it relates to the other areas in health, we have actually just started ramping up one of the projects that has been sitting for quite a while at the division. Is one where we wanted to actually develop our capacity to do testing for the different vectors. So mosquito testing and that kind of stuff to see what we have, what's going on, the number of mosquitoes that we're seeing. So we're actually pulling together a lab that would allow us to do some of that kind of insect vector testing happening. The other thing we have been looking at also in that regard on the public health phase is to create another lab that allows us to test for our food and our water to ensure that is safe and to ensure that we are providing the best care on the public health front. On the health front, one of the projects we are about to implement is actually just doing some of the backlogs of surgeries that we've been sitting on because we couldn't do them because of COVID. So we're about to implement a cataract surgery project where almost all of the cataracts that needed to happen way back when, we are pulling them together, bringing in an external team to help us work out some of those backlogs. Maybe it's important for me to also mention that under my remit is also the responsibility of social protection, and social protection really is that entity that allows us to be resilient, that entity that allows us to withstand shocks, whether those shocks are good or bad. And of course, we're all experiencing the absolute horrible shock known as COVID-19, and we are still recovering economically. Our education system is still trying to figure out what's happening. We just came from a situation where our C results, our secondary school entrance results, were actually not that great. And this may be one of the least successful years that we've had thus far. So we have to rebuild all of those social, educational, economic infrastructures to ensure that we come out of the pandemic not lagging too far behind the rest of the world, but that we are able to rebuild. And those are some of the things I'm also working on within my division, working on ensuring that we have the policies that allow people to get the kind of social support that is necessary and so forth.
And Dr. Israel, we have a comment here from one of our viewers, Bob Marisher. He's saying, my love for Tobagonians is unparalleled. Was surprised to learn that there was a loose association with the Windward Islands in 1885. After 15 years in the USA, my dear friend Dr. Warner cannot be detached from Tobago. Good luck, Dr. Israel.
Thank you, thank you.
So you're getting a vote of confidence there. Now, finally, we would take a quick break, but when we come back, we want to talk about just other issues taking place in Tobago. I know that you have Carnival happening. You also have Emancipation activities taking place as well. So we want to talk about that. So we'll take a quick break, Dr. Israel. Thank you for indulging us with your time, and we will be right back.
Certainly.
Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
To the cards that I have drawn that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
But you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this...
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
And welcome back to the Bubb Report, folks. We are joined by Dr. Faith B. Israel of the Tobago House of Assembly, who also serves as a councillor. And so you have those two roles there. Thank you for that education. Now, one of the things that struck us as a point of interest, you did have an LGBTQ flag raising ceremony in June. Did that raise any flags in Tobago, given how socially conservative the Caribbean is? And what was the basis for that?
So as you see, I actually still have my pride flag behind me. It's always behind me because I am one of those individuals who firmly believe that all people deserve to have freedoms and that all people deserve to be treated with love, kindness, and respect, including individuals of the LGBTQIAA plus community. I'm also a health educator and focus on healthy human sexuality. So I spend quite a lot of my time speaking about sex, speaking about, those situations that make people quite uncomfortable, and that's fine. But I think my population recognizes that is who I am, and that is part of who I will continue to be. I will continue to advocate for anyone who needs to be advocated for. That's just part of who I am. That's part of who I was elected to be, and that's what I'll continue doing.
And Dr. Israel, let us segue now into conversations about Tobago. Tobago, obviously, there are strong connections with Tobago and the island of Carriacou in particular. I don't know if you have any Carriacou or Grenadian roots, but they do say that half of Trinidad and Tobago is Grenada. So you might as well have some roots there.
I may.
Yeah, so let us talk about, you do have emancipation activities coming up. Caribbean-wide observation who were colonized by the British. What would those celebrations look like in Tobago?
So even before the Emancipation celebration, as a matter of fact, in Tobago, we have had the Tobago Heritage Festival, which is a heritage that has been around for over 30, probably 35 years in Tobago. And that starts in the middle of June. This year was, again, coming out of COVID. You know, nothing happened over the last 2 years. So this is the first year we are actually having that kind of traditional face-to-face Tobago Heritage Festival. It actually started this year, unfortunately, because it's so truncated. We are only doing it for about a week and a little over a week. It actually started 2 days ago with our grand opening, and the Tobago Heritage Festival is one that showcases our rich African, our rich cultural heritage. It focuses primarily on the African culture, but there are other parts, the Spanish, the French, all of those others that come together to make this wonderful callaloo that is known as Trinidad and Tobago, and specifically Tobago. That is actually a festival that we have every year. So our emancipation celebrations usually is like the last day of that festival. The emancipation thing is really close to the end of that. We actually had our wonderful Queen show yesterday evening, and it really speaks to the opening, and I'm going to brag about this a little bit. The opening on Friday spoke specifically about, we have one of our silk cotton trees, because there's huge silk cotton trees in Tobago, and they come with such mystical stories and so forth about them. And you know, last year one of our silk cotton trees fell, and that caused an entire uproar in the island. So the production that happened on the first day of this Heritage Festival spoke about the meaning of the silk cotton tree and what we should be getting out of the silk cotton tree and that kind of thing, using that to jumpstart our Heritage Festival. So we have that. I would also love to speak very quickly about the fact that we are having our first official Tobago Carnival in October, and we are very excited about that. In the past, we've had what we call Tobago Fest that included maybe a day of carnival activities, but this is going to be our first official Tobago having a separate carnival from the Trinidad and Tobago carnival that we usually have in February, March, around that time. And this is an opportunity for us to showcase that what Tobago carnival actually looks like. Yes, it would include some of the pretty masks, and yes, it would include some of the pan and the calypsos and so forth, but we actually have something that is very unique in Tobago. We call it the official term is the mud and mud. It's the pretty mud. You know, we have the mud mask, and that is usually
yes,
right. That is usually the color of mud, brown. But we actually have some creatives on the island who've been spending time creating colorful mud. So we have red muds and green mud and yellow mud, and they call it mud and mud. And it's one of the things we are definitely showcasing in Tobago for Tobago Carnival. So we're inviting all of you, our brothers and sisters in all of the neighboring islands, to come over. Tobago Carnival, it's end of October, and we are excited about that.
I never had the chance to make it to Tobago. I've always traveled to Trinidad for Carnival. I am an avowed masquerader, but certainly, yes, I visit Trinidad all the time for Carnival. But that
so
would
now
not
you
be
have
happening.
now you have no excuse, because it's a completely different time and it's not around your carnival either. So you can come in October.
Absolutely, Dr. Israel. Looking to the future and what the PDP hopes to accomplish with respect to Tobago and your vision for Tobago, and by extension your vision for Trinidad and Tobago. As we wrap up this conversation, what does the PDP envision a Trinidad and Tobago, especially a Tobago where you are, that's your niche right now politically, over the next 10 years?
So if you were paying attention to the campaign leading up to this, our tagline has been, we want to make Tobago the greatest little island on the planet, full stop. the greatest little island on the planet. And that means doing huge things like evolving our healthcare system, evolving our economic activities, evolving our housing. But it also means doing little things like ensuring that you can wear, a sleeveless shirt to go into an office, that is a government office. It includes looking at our tourism product and ensuring that that works for us. It also includes, one of the biggest plans we have is to actually rebuild our city, the city of Scarborough. One of my colleagues is spearheading that massive rebuilding of the entire city, so that whenever visitors come in, when they come into Tobago, when they come into Scarborough, they look up and they say, oh my goodness, this is an amazing city. I want to come back. So all of those are parts of our plan to make Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. That is where our vision is, and that's what we are working on every single day.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that I missed that you wish to add? Any teachable thoughts for your brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, even here in Grenada? What can the Caribbean learn from you in Tobago, especially at this time?
I think that one of the things we need to be conscious of is the fact that the world is evolving and we need to evolve with it. I think in Caribbean communities, we tend to be very comfortable with what our traditions were and to keep using those traditions continually. And I'm not saying to throw out the tradition, but know that this is an opportunity. COVID allowed us an opportunity to do a reset. And that reset is what we are doing in Tobago right now. And we are encouraging all of the Caribbean islands, including Grenada, to do that kind of reset. Think strategically about what worked, what you need to do to make it work. Think about what was happening pre-COVID. Was the normal before COVID a good normal? And if it wasn't a good normal, then fix it. Move towards fixing it. By the way, that was actually one of our taglines as well in the campaign, where our aim really is to fix the big things, to fix the small things, to fix the in-between things that are not working. And we encourage all of our Caribbean brothers and sisters to have the courage to do exactly that. If it's not working for you, have the courage to make the political change, make the educational change, make the social changes that are necessary so that you can evolve, so that the island that you have works for all of you on the island.
And we have some comments here. Someone is saying we have Tobago Heritage Festival. For Tobago Carnival, we need a boat to come down from Grenada. We need the close connection because, as you know, transportation in the region, regional transportation, is a major issue, right? I mean, LIAT, and sometimes people wanted to discount LIAT and their service and how difficult it was to use the service of LIAT. But now we do see the benefit of LIAT.
Certainly. And by the way, one of the things we are actually looking at is to have that direct link, to have a vessel moving from Tobago to Grenada directly. And that is something that the Chief Sec spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and we are working on that as well. So maybe by then it would be in place. I can't confirm that by October it will just yet, but it is actually one of the things we are pushing to do so that we have that interconnectedness between the islands.
Absolutely. Dr. Israel, is there anything else you wish to add before we go to the next segment?
No, I think that's it. I just want to thank you so much for having me on the program this morning. It was an honor being here. Definitely feel free to call on me again, and we will come and we will continue having that collaboration. We see Grenada as our brothers and sisters as well, and we will continue working together to ensure that all our Caribbean islands develop in the way they should.
Absolutely, and we have some viewer comments for you here. Dr. Israel, you are a beacon of change. And then another viewer is saying, I applaud the progressive and transformation for Tobago. Another commenter is saying, Trinidad and Tobago making progress in the 21st century as it should. Can't be stagnant anymore. And another commenter is saying, amazing opening discourse. So, Dr. Israel, we want to thank you for feeding our minds and our souls this morning, especially on a Sunday. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Dr. Faith B. Israel, a councillor and a member of the Tobago House of Assembly under the Progressive Democratic Patriots. Now, the next segment of the Bubb Report comes to you compliments S.A. Johnson Funeral Home. It is a Caribbean family-owned funeral service. They offer a full range of funeral services at affordable prices in New York City, and they can be reached on 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity. And at this point, we would come up for air, take a quick break, and we would be right back.
The Olympic champion in the javelin needs to try and put something together here. He's trying to roar the javelin forward. That is more like it. Well, what an incredible backdrop. The whole stadium roaring him on. The gold's in the bag. And that's another throw over 90. That is ridiculous.
3 throws over 90 meters. How good do you feel about the performance tonight?
I feel pretty good to be able to defend my World Championship title. Coming from not making the Olympic finals last year to defending the world title and having 3 throws in the final over 90 meters. I mean, I'm really grateful for that. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone that's supporting me. Thank God for giving me the ability to perform this well.
I don't even know how many times you've been, on the medal podium, bringing home another medal. What does this one mean to you here in 2022?
I think it's special, coming off especially in an Olympic year. You want to show people that you can be consistent, that you can keep on going and not let up. So for me, it's always special. I always say every championship, it's unique in its own way. The circumstances are unique. So for me, I'm just proud and happy to be back on the podium.
Nice. And can you talk a little bit about the journey over the past kind of like 4 years where, you came back from Graves' disease and then you went to Doha. I think you just missed the podium at 5th. You finally got to the Olympics, you got your medal, but now you're even higher on a silver medal again. Talk to me about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special journey. Like I said, for me, it's a blessing to just be back competing at a level that's highly competitive.
Yeah.
And, you just take everything as it comes, So obviously our event is very competitive,
yeah.
So you can't really take anything for granted. So, like I say, I'm just glad to be back and competing at a high level and be back on the podium.
Who are some of the people that you have around you to support you through some of those tough times and the ups and downs throughout your career?
Yeah, obviously my coach, Harvey Lange, he's been there with me, since I just started. In my days at University of Alabama, obviously my family home, the people in my community involved, in extension to Grenada, the whole diaspora in New York, Toronto, all over the US, all over the world. So just having that kind of support system, I think is important because, I'm just assured that as long as I do my best, these people are going to be proud of me. And once I know that I have that, guarantee, then I can just go out and compete to the best of my ability.
Nice.
And folks, we welcome you back to the Bubb Report as we count down to Spice Mass 2022. Now, when we think of Spice Mass 2022, sometimes people think of it exclusively as carnival events, but Spice Mass traditionally also encompassed the Rainbow City Festival in St. Andrew, as well as the Carriacou Regatta in Carriacou, and other events surrounding Emancipation Day, the commemoration of Emancipation Day, and our physical liberation from the shackles of slavery at some very oppressive Europeans. And so what we want to do today is to have a conversation about the other events that would define the summer festivals in Grenada. And at this point, I wish to welcome our 2 guests, but just let me say before this, we were also trying very hard this morning to ensure that we have a representation from Carriacou, but unfortunately that guest was having some technical challenges with respect to logging in. She is the coordinator of the chairperson of the Carriacou Regatta Organizational Committee. So unfortunately, she will not be joining us this morning as was initially advertised. But we are happy to be joined by a colleague. I still call her a colleague, but we worked together at the Grenada Broadcasting Network for a short time. That's Kay Julian. So, Kay Julian, if you would unmute and just let me say thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report today. And Mr. Ian Charles of Jambalasi, Grenada. Ian, welcome to the Bubb Report again. And you also have an event that's happening on Emancipation Day. So we want to talk to both of you about those two events that will be held to commemorate Emancipation Day. And Kay, I want to begin with you. Now, the Institute of People's Enlightenment, they normally hold an annual commemorative public lecture for emancipation. And so could you tell us about the public lecture that will be happening this year?
Thank you, Kellon, for having me on the Bubb Report. This is the first time I've been on the Bubb Report, so I'm very pleased and happy to be here and happy to represent the Institute for People's Enlightenment. I'm a director of the Institute, and as usual, for many years, we've been having a commemorative emancipation public lecture to mark the day, August 1st, 1838. And we normally do this in conjunction or in collaboration with the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Grenada. So we take this opportunity to thank them for their support and their sponsorship and the backing of the Institute in carrying out the lecture. Why did we start these lectures? And even though, let me just go back a little, why even the existence of the Institute for People's Enlightenment? And this institute started many, many, many years ago. I think it's had its formation back in the 1990s. And when I said the germination was back then, it may have been formalized much later, but there were many of us who were meeting at the University of the West Indies who had been graduates of the University of the West Indies. And we wanted to have some expression of intellectual discourse to just keep in touch with that university life. But that was just one part of it. Another part of it is that, well, we were of like mind, and we wanted to see that we saw that there was an absence of a lot of things in Grenada's history and observances, that we were celebrating the holiday on August 1st, the first Monday in August. But most people, and even now, some people would still tell you that they have no idea why there is a holiday the first Monday. People do not know that that holiday is to observe the freeing of our descendants, or African enslaved descendants, on August 1st, 1838. And that is, the Emancipation Act was 1834, but the slaves were not freed for another 4 years. And that is a big deal. If people had not advocated, and the people at the time, the churches and other people, had not advocated that no, slavery was wrong and something, we could have been maybe still be enslaved people. So it is a big deal that more than 200 or so years ago, we were freed as a people. And so we, among the many things that we do, because we try to bring enlightenment and remembrance, and try to bring the past, the historical past, back into people's focus in a number of different activities. So early up in the year, we have started having the annual Louise Little Langdon lectures as well. And who was Louise Little? She was the mother of Malcolm X, who is a major civil rights icon in the United States. And she came from Grenada. So we've started doing that. We have had several projects that focus on the Amerindians of Grenada. They were the first people who lived here, and they should be respected. Their memory should be respected. So we have worked a lot on that as well. And we have many other activities that we do. We do hikes that take us into the interior, into different historical places in Grenada, like Fedon's Camp, for example, and other places around the island where historical things have happened. So yes, we are a group that is quite active, and in terms of keeping the memory of many historical things alive. And every year, for several years now, we've been having this Emancipation public lecture. Well, since the pandemic started in 2020, we've been having it virtually, and that has been quite successful, the virtual. But prior to that, it was in a physical location somewhere in Grenada. And we've had quite a few people, quite many people who have passed through, who have done this lecture. Great minds, you know. Someone did actually present on Louis Little a few years ago, and that is how the annual Louis Little Langdon lecture came about. We've had many various different topics. This year, our guest speaker is based in the UK, and her name is Tola Debari. She is a British Nigerian, of British Nigerian background, and she has has over 20 years of experience as a cultural consultant, and she has a PhD from Leeds Beckett University. She has focused a lot on Caribbean history, even though her background is she's African British. She loves the Caribbean history, and she has done quite a lot of research on Caribbean carnival arts, uh, um, just Caribbean history in general. And this year, her topic is going to be orality and the traditional mass of Grenada, the exploration of traditional mass as a source of historical information about the retention of African intangible cultural heritage. I know it's a mouthful,
That
but
is a mouthful.
yeah, so it's orality and the
Yeah.
traditional mass of Grenada, the exploration of traditional mass as a source of historical information about the retention of African. So basically, this topic is looking at how the mass that we have, the traditional mass that we have in Grenada or masquerade, the many various forms of, is in some way a form or in some way linked to our African cultural heritage. And Tola, in an interview with me, indicated that.
Kay, you accidentally muted there. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Tola, in an interview with me, indicated that there is a perception, and we all know it, that our African history, our Africanness was lost in the transatlantic slave journey to the Caribbean, that journey where they changed our names, and they just erased our Africanness or African history from us. And she's trying to prove that no, that is not so. Even we know it is not so in a lot of things, in our food, in our dress, and our language, and so on. So there's still a lot of retention, but she's also saying that some of this retention is also in the masquerade that we do. And I'm in her lecture, she will delve deeper into some of the masquerades that she has researched, but she's even looking at like the jab. She's saying that the perception is that it's created out of the colonialism and out of the slavery, but she is saying that there are still aspects of the jab that can be seen, or the roots can be traced back to West Africa and to our Africanness and our African culture back in those days.
Yeah, so stick a pin there about jab, and speaking of jab, speaking of jab, Ian, we are going to bring you in because you are also commemorating Emancipation on August 1st with the first ever, I believe, what if let me get the name correct. Is it the Jambalasi Festival there, Ian?
That's correct. Are
Yes,
you hearing me?
It is. I'm hearing you loud and clear. It is the Jambalasi Festival,
Yeah.
which, to dovetail based on what Kay just spoke about, that jab tradition. Could you talk to us about the thinking behind having such a festival on August 1st, that red letter day on August 1st?
Well, again, thank you for having me once again. And the festival is really shrouded in emancipation and cultural jab culture. Because what we're seeing right now is that jab and the jab movement and the jab music and everything jab is on a world scale. The interest is there regionally, internationally, but we seem to have very limited documentation about jab, limited documentation on where it stems from. So the idea of the Jambalasi Festival and having it on Emancipation is an is totally, it is attempt to really link the two. So the idea now is to showcase the different drum patterns of the jab jab, shell patterns of the jab jab, paraphernalia and spelling, to really show the cultural aspect of jab jab. So emancipation and jab jab goes hand in hand, because like Ms. Julian just said, talking about the doctor who's going to be there for the presentation. When you look back at jab jab, it links right back to Africa. Although you might have information who link the jab jab to a post-emancipation mass, fair enough, but it's still linked through the Africans. So we really want to bring those sort of elements together. We're going to have screens with like verified information on jab jab, verified information on the culture, and also really bring out the ICF of the jab jab. And the idea now is to have it every year on emancipation. This year just happens to be that, okay, the holiday falls on Emancipation Day, but August 1st, from there on, should be the Jambalasi Festival. We're going to be celebrating Grenada's traditional jab jab culture. And to do that now, we have collaborations with Lafayette Jab, Sab Jab, Hermitage Jab, Paraclete Jab, Capital Jab. Now, Capital Jab is a combination of Carrie and St. John and some bit of other parts. Pedmota Jab, Douglaston Jab, and Munich Jab. And the idea was to go to the real community bands, because that's where the tradition is. So we really want to bring forth an authentic jab jab cultural event on the 1st, Victoria Park, St. Andrew. And we really hope people are going to come out and support. Remember, it's not a fete, it's a festival. And you could bring your family, your kids, everybody. We also want to have an Eat Healthy, Eat Local initiative, where we're going to be linking with the farmers and the fisher folk, that, whenever you come there, you're going to get, because culture is not only jab jab. Culture is food, what you wear, what you listen to. So we really want to push a holistic cultural event on the 1st to commemorate this great emancipation. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let us delve deeper. You said you're looking at different forms. Now, you've taught me something here this morning that I didn't know, that you have different subgenres of jab jab. Can you talk more about that?
When you say subgenre,
yeah, like you're talking about different drum rhythm styles.
Okay.
You're
The
talking
elements,
about
the
different
elements of the
elements.
jab.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
elements.
Yes.
So
So talk to us about that.
Yeah, definitely, because that's a major aspect of the festival.
Yeah.
So when you strip the jab down, the jab has 3 major elements in the song. It has the drum pattern, and the drum pattern has 3 drums beaten as one. So it's led by the bass, the coupe, and the cutter. So in any traditional standard Grenadian jab jab band, you must have 3 drums. One person cannot beat the jab jab drum. Yeah, you could beat the bass, you could beat the coupe, but you need to have, for it to get a real rhythm, you need the 3 drums. So we're going to be showcasing the authentic jab jab drums. Then we're going to be showcasing authentic shell patterns. What we've seen through research is that different areas in Grenada brings you different shell patterns. So that's why we have a wide array of bands. And then you're going to have the paraphernalia and the spelling or the chants, which is critical, because that's where you really get the full element. So you want to showcase the elements of the jab along with the music. Now, the musical aspect of it, there are some people, we call them jab jab soca ambassadors. Skinny Banton. Skinny Banton is one of the most important, I should say, soca ambassadors as it relates to jab. Why do I say that? In his music, he has elements of jab, not just musically, but his lyrics. So we want to showcase Skinny Banton. Tal Pre, obviously, Pre did a lot for bringing the jab music out there. You have Jab King, you have Frisco Spratt, Brother B, Four Brass, Lava Man, Mandela Links, General PP, Booba 473, and Kinky Kim. So these guys now will be doing their jab hits, and along with Rhythm Mix. After Mars International in 1991 with Jambalasi Rule, Noddy Frederick and Rhythm Mix took the jab to a next level. They reign supreme maybe for the next 5 years, 6 years. And a lot of the music, for instance, Olu Malone, was produced by Noddy Frederick, Catholic, Noddy Frederick, Frisco Spratt, Jab, Noddy Frederick. So there's a lot of history in the music that we really want to showcase and bring to the forefront.
Absolutely. So we are getting some comments here. Alana Morris is saying, blessed morning. Where can we find more information on the Jambalasi Festival? Schedule, cost, location. I did just put up the flyer there, but if you
You
just
put
want
up
to
the old
reiterate
flyer.
that, the old flyer,
That's okay.
you
That's
need to
cool.
send me that updated flyer, but or you might have sent it, but
I
tell us
did.
more. Yes.
All right, no problem. So Victoria Park, August 1st, gates open at 3 p.m. Now, to get on the inside, it's $20 plus two basic essentials. Let me explain that to you. So you're going to pay $20, but we have a collaboration with the Cecilia Catherine Foundation, in which we're looking for basic essentials. And what we're looking for is a bottled water or deodorant, soap, toothpaste, something that you need for your basic living. So once you have $20 and into basic essentials, you get access into the Jambalasi Festival. Like I said, it's Monday, August the 1st. And you can get more information on all of our social media at Jambalasi Grenada on IG, Jambalasi GND on Twitter, Jambalasi Grenada on Facebook. And again, it's on your radio stations and whatnot. So there you have it.
Absolutely. Now we have another question. Hudson George is saying, Ian Charles, you're on point. The real jab jab is in the village communities in the rural areas.
Definitely.
And Anthony Howard, now we were having this conversation, and I want to give you the opportunity to speak to this because it goes to environmental friendliness, that tension that we have with wanting environmental preservation with jab. But Anthony Howard is saying, why are we still using used motor oil and tar for jab jab? How can you, I suppose he's speaking to you, Ian, speak of good health in the same sentence as jab jab? The oil spill.
Well, maybe Mr. Howard was not aware, but we've been on a campaign since 2019, part of our Go Green initiative, where we introduced our charcoal pigment, and that was a deliberate attempt to kind of sway away from the old oil. Because he has a great point. I mean, the jab has reached international platforms, and it's kind of weird to be asking people to put old engine oil on your skin. Let's be honest, old engine oil is not something you want to put on the human body. So we've done our part in terms of using the charcoal. And I know that there's a no slum, and the real jab also has a line of charcoal. So the idea is to really, break away from the old oil and go in a more, a healthier, a more environmentally friendly way of getting black. But there is a lot of, what's the word I should use? There's a lot of miscommunication with the jab. People are people are under the impression that you have to use old oil to be a real jab. That's not true. What you're seeing is that different eras in time, people use different ways to get black, from molasses to soot to tar to charcoal to pigment to old oil, because people was playing jab before vehicles came to Grenada. So the idea that okay, you have to use old engine oil to be a real jab is not correct. And I think this year, Spice Mass 2022 is going to be bigger than 19. It's going to be the biggest ever. So we're going to have a lot of newcomers, and they might be kind of hesitant to use the old engine oil. So you're going to have, like I say, you have your charcoal from Jambalasi. You could get it from slum. You get it from different. There are different ways you could really get black. But Mr. Howard, good point, and we need to get away from the old engine oil if we really want the jab to go totally international and global, and folks could come here and actually enjoy our culture with us.
Mm-hmm. Another commenter saying, this is a fantastic and creative initiative. Give back always. You're also getting some pushback there, Ian, from Benedict Rouge. He's saying, so jab was not traditional in the capital parish. I think he's having banter with one of the previous comment. Why I noticed there is no mention of areas there.
Well, very good point. And he's right. He's 100% right. What we've seen, Kellan, is that the landmass from St. David's, St. Andrews, and St. Patrick's. Now, jab is played throughout Grenada. Yes, Grenada, Carriacou, thematic, fair enough. But that landmass there has the highest amount of jab bands per parish. So that is the reason why it is so country heavy. And the original idea was to have 6 bands, but we realized, hey, we cannot keep it to 6. And the reason for 6 was to represent, one for each parish, not necessarily one from that particular parish, but just to have a representation of the 6 parishes. Now we have 8 bands, and the bands we have at Lafayette Jab. If you're talking about Jab, Lafayette Jab is one of the most influential jabs in Grenada. They have tradition and they stick with tradition. SAB, same thing. Hermitage, same thing. Paraclete, Capital, Pedmota, Douglaston, Munich, same thing. So I definitely understand what he's saying, but the idea right now is to showcase particular bands, and definitely we want to have this going every single year. So which band did not make it on the forefront this year? Not because we don't, it's just a matter of budget constraints as well. But next year, again, we're going to feature different bands. But he has a point. But the reason is because St. Andrews, St. Patrick's, St. David's, they have a large constitution of bands.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And let me bring back Kay here. Kay, would we ever be seeing an in-person return, in-person memorial lecture with the Institute of People's Enlightenment? I'm hoping perhaps that this might be the last year for virtual lectures.
Well, you will have to speak to the director, CEO, Mr. Peter Antwine.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, this year it's virtual, but I can't say for next year. I guess we will have to look and see what the conditions and what the situation is like. But this year we just continue because it was still kind of iffy throughout. I mean, with the COVID and everything up to a couple months ago. So it was still considered the best choice for now, but maybe next year we'll consider the in-person. But I've been listening to Ian. Ian is his name, right?
Correct. He's Ian.
So we are doing this lecture, and Tola will be talking about the orality of the tradition, and I'm listening to him in connection with the drumming and the shell and so on. And this is how, over the years, Jab has gotten a lot of licks, and it's now about time that we give respect to Jab. So I think the Jambalasi Festival is going to help with that, because people do not understand who Jab are and what they represent. And even some of the people who play the Jab, like maybe the young people, they just know they're putting oil and they're putting on the black and they're going to play Jab, but they don't really know the history behind it. But you see the drumming and the shell and all of this. So this didn't start after post-emancipation. This started during slavery. When they came, the people retained their drumming from West Africa. And the drumming and the shell were used to transmit messages that the plantation owners could not understand. So when they were planning whether they're revolts or whatever, drumming and so were key. Dancing, whenever the plantation owners gave them a little respite from their labors, these people pulled out their drums and their shells and whatnot and danced and ate into the night. And so this festivities and this carnival-like atmosphere that we have did not start post-emancipation, but even during slavery, when the people got a break. I mean, the historians will tell you that there was a lot of dancing and drumming and the shell blowing and all of that kind of thing. So Tola would be looking at the Big Drum Festival. She'd be looking at Jab and a few Veko, Shortney, all of these expressions that have come out of a traditional mass, looking at the African connection. But yes, it's very interesting that the Jambalasi festival is taking place. And I see that they're having the festival and we are doing the lecture, and both would educate the people exactly, because people, now, as he's saying, Jab over the years, because of the Jab rhythm and the artists who have taken it through the world have kind of given it some respect and given it some popularity outside of Grenada, but there's still a huge level of the population in Grenada who don't like the Jab, and they wish that would have nothing to do with Jab, and they think it's of the devil and this and it's sinful and it's all kinds of things. And they don't see the cultural part of it and why it came out and why it emerged. So when we do the historical lecture, this will put it in perspective. This is how people express themselves in the culture. This is how they freed themselves and expressed themselves from a system that kept them they could not talk, they could not express, they were not humans, they were not allowed to even be, to own, to do anything. They were just under somebody else's total control. So this was their expression. So I think and this has just retained and kept going over the years. It's part of, and this is what she's talking about, the oralities passing on from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. Yes.
But don't you think that there is an opportunity, and this is what I've been advocating for a long time, and we talk about external partners such as yourself with the Institute of People Enlightenment, as well as Jambalasi Grenada and other external partners who are keeping the culture and keeping the history alive, that we need to have a cultural studies course taught in schools. There is a time for us to teach cultural studies in schools that takes into account a curriculum for steel pan, that takes into account a curriculum for mass band design, that takes into account a history of carnival, that takes into account shortney, veco, that takes into account, for example, portrayals of the wild Indian and donkey mass. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had no clue what donkey mass was. They looked at me as though I was crazy. When I said, oh yeah, I remember looking at donkey mass in St. David's in rural Mass, and they looked at me as though I was crazy. So I want to get your thoughts on the idea that this has to be institutionalized and codified in our schools.
It does. It does have to be institutionalized. And it's not, I mean, emancipation is one, but we have other holidays. We have the October 25th holiday. And do you know there are people who don't even know why we have that? Why we have that? People who do not know that we had a prime minister that was massacred along with some other people. And people, I mean, this is just an indictment on our educational system, that we've just basically just erased some of our history from the school curriculum, and that is important. Why do we have an October 25th Thanksgiving Day? What is the whole history behind that? There are people walking around, adults in their 30s, who do not know why there is that. They do not know that a government crumbled like that and the prime minister was killed and executed and all. There are people who are walking around in our country who do not know that part of our history. So there is a big there's room for that in our school system, I should say. A lot of room for including the culture in our culture and other parts of our history in the school curriculum.
Mm-hmm. And Ian, I want to get your thoughts. I mean, you're doing great work there around bringing that history. And what are your thoughts on the point that was just made there?
No, she's 100% correct. Before I go on, I mean, I'm not too sure how long Doc going to be here, but I mean, we'd love to have Doc up at the Jambalasi Festival. If something that could be worked out, we will definitely be interested in that. But I mean, she made major points. The drumming were banned on like many plantations because there's a lot of history in the jab. So again, it goes because I think just to gather my thoughts, I think the educational system is a direct impact of European propaganda. And today I'm not 100% sure what's the history curriculum in the secondary and primary schools, but I know when I was going to school, we did very little on African history. What we did was European history and Columbus.
Colonized history that Columbus discovered.
Exactly.
He didn't discover anything.
And black people came from slaves. We're not slaves.
No, our history precedes that.
You understand? So I'm not 100% sure how it is right now, but these are major times, and self-awareness is a major key in today's world. And we need to do our just due right now to make sure that generations to come understand the rich and potent history of our Black history. And that's a major element in the Jambalasi Festival.
Absolutely. Now, Anthony Howard is coming back here concerning the festival. I understand your point, but for the festival, are you willing to tell folks they cannot take part in your event if they're using used motor oil and tar on their bodies?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to answer this in two parts, just to make sure that everybody understands the festival. No, the festival would not be, okay, everybody come and get black and play jab. Remember, it's a festival where you're going to be showcasing Grenada's jab culture. So the only person that's going to be black is the jab bands. Now, what we've seen is that different communities use different, different stuff, different things to get black. For instance, Lafayette Jab uses star. That's their thing. They use star. Other jab band might use charcoal. Other jab band might use oil oil. So whatever the jab bands want to use, that's cool. We have no issues with that. But in terms of from a Jambalasi Grenada perspective, we are going to be having available our Jambalasi charcoal pigment. So it's not an idea of, hey, you cannot use this, you cannot use that. They're going to come and showcase their traditional way of doing it, but we're going to have for the patrons, if you want to buy, get ready for Juve, because it's going to be a week from August 1st, it's going to be a week until Juve morning. So we're going to have our charcoal pigment available for those who want. Yeah.
Absolutely. And let's get to some comments before we and some obviously some of you both panelists here might not be able to answer all of the questions, but let's see. Someone is asking, which country owns Jab? Can Grenada legally say that Jab is ours?
Well, let me answer that, because you have to understand, no country owns Jab. Remember, it's African history, and we are in this part of the world through displacement. You understand? So the culture is throughout the entire. We've seen that we have in Guadeloupe, there's a serious jab that's played that's very, 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 very similar to our jab.
They call it vukum, yeah.
Exactly. To say that Grenada or Trinidad or Barbados or whatever owns jab, no, it is something that is cultural. It's something that is African. So once you're from African descent, you're going to have some level of jab in you. The jab music is what makes Grenada special. Grenada's jab music, like I said, is different. If you listen to the jabs out of Guadeloupe, they have a different shell pattern to us. They have a different drum pattern to us. Our drum pattern and shell pattern is fire. So it caught on, and obviously, the subgenre of jab kicks up. But in terms of one nation owning jab, no, it's African heritage.
Kay?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think we have to go back and give credit for the music to do you remember that band out of Birch Grove? I think they were the first ones who started this kind of jab rhythm. I don't know if Mr. Ian would remember the band that I'm talking about. Yes.
These are my uncles, Moss International.
Moss International. They started this kind of rhythm back in the day. And so I think so that is where Grenada would say we have an edge on the other countries, but every country expresses, every country would have drumming. Every country had maroons and runaway slaves, and every country had revolts, and every country expressed the culture. They would have the drumming and different things in different ways, but every country in the Caribbean, I should say, wherever there was slavery, would have had some expression of that jab culture in their history.
And Janelle is saying no country owns it. We're only different because we were dropped off at different ports, and we all people of African descent. We were, as you said, Ian, we were displaced. Kellen is saying, Nato is saying we need to patent it. I suppose he's talking about the rhythms here as soon as possible before Trinidad does it.
I don't think any country could patent, because first you have to understand the rhythm, which they have proven not to. And I mean, it's something that I think Grenada has a lock on, and I think the industry is on the right path. And I think I must big up the people from Spice Mass Corporation, Grenada National Reparations Committee, UNESCO, and everybody who's doing their just due to ensure that the ICH of Grenada is well documented.
Absolutely. And let's see if we have more viewer comments. Somebody saying, I think we can claim the term jab and our new popular drum pattern. Now, and Ian, you preempted what the Grenada National Reparations Commission will be doing in observance and commemoration of Emancipation on the 29th of August, and I'm going to share the flyer here, on the 29th. On the 29th of July, not August. The Grenada National Reparations Commission invites all to celebrate African Dress Day, where they are encouraging all Grenadians to dress up in their African attire, African outfit. I would be donning my African attire, proudly so, during that entire emancipation period. So expect to see me with my head wrap. I mean, I always wear. I've decolonized my wardrobe on the Bubb Report for the most part, except in some circumstances. But on the 29th of July, we're hoping that all Grenadians can participate in African Dress Day, because we are indeed people of African descent in the diaspora. So that is an event to look forward to there. Lady and gentlemen, I just want to get some closing comments from both of you before we end today's program. Kay, ladies first, I will start with you.
Yes, so just to remind the public that our flyers are out on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and so on, for the Emancipation Lecture. It takes place tomorrow afternoon, evening, 5:30 p.m., and it will be a virtual event. So persons, you have to register. So get the link, get a hold of the link, and we can share the link. We can post it up on Facebook and different places, and persons can register that way to participate in the lecture. It's going to be a quite inspirational event, motivational event. It's going to be a learning experience, because we're going to learn so much from Tola and her research about the masquerade and the history and the orality of it and how it's passed on. And basically that whole African perspective and how much of it has come from Africa, that some of us probably we think has nothing to do with Africa, but it has a lot to do with Africa. So we will learn a lot from that lecture, and just encouraging people to check out our flyers. The links would be attached to the flyers, and persons can contact Peter, Antoine, or myself to find out how they can register. My email is kjulian, KAYJULIEN @hotmail.com, or persons can call me at 459-8967 just to find out more about the lecture and if they want the link to register. So thank you for having me on the Bubb Report. I thoroughly enjoyed myself this morning and sharing the spotlight with Mr. Ian. I'm definitely going to go up to the Jambalasi on the 1st of. Sometimes I do the walk when they have the walk, in La Bay City. I would go every Emancipation. Once they have the walk, I would go with my flambeau and stuff and do the walk, because that started as an IP event as well, and then Seydou took it over. So so we I'm expecting myself and my family to be at the Jambalasi event.
Great.
Absolutely. There you go. And Ian, I'm also hoping to, not hoping, but I will be there as well, because I'm looking forward to that as well. And Ian, some closing comments from you.
Yeah, well, I would like to say thank you to the NLA, UNESCO, Clarkscourt, Spice Mass Corporation, the Catherine Cecilia Foundation, WPG 10, Grenada National Reparations Commission, and the 1261 Film Festival. They're all partners on board to make sure that we bring a world-class festival to St. Andrew and by extension Grenada and the world. And we're really looking to push tradition, and people come out, enjoy a festival, eat right, eat healthy, and have fun, while again having some cultural awareness that you may or you may not have known about. And we hope to see you there.
Absolutely. Kay Julian, my former colleague at GBN, but still my media colleague, because you are still in the media space, albeit on the public relations side of things. And my former PBC classmate, Presentation Brothers College classmate in this our 75th year. And speaking of PBC, Presentation College does have a post-carnival event. I'm going to share that flyer here as well. That post-carnival event is happening on the 11th of August at the Spice Basket. The title of it is Diamonds in the Calabash. It starts at 7 p.m. with performances by the PBC Choir, Conception Dance Theater, the Comancheros Steel Band, as well as spoken word, soca, calypso, and drama. One of the highlights, feature highlights, would be calypso performance by the Mighty Manikou. I encourage Grenadians to do the homework to find out who the Mighty Manikou is. He's a notable businessman in Grenada. And the price of admissions, $40 for adults, $20 for children. So that is a post-carnival event happening at the Spice Basket in commemoration of Presentation Brothers College's 75th anniversary of excellence in education to Grenada. So guests, thank you and for your participation on the Bubb Report today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That was
thank you so much,
yes,
Kellen.
Absolutely. Is there something else you wanted to say, Ian?
Yeah, I just shared the updated flyer with you via your email. So
okay, so I will make sure and share that. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so that was
thank you very much, Kellen.
Absolutely. Kay Julian of the Institute for People's Enlightenment and Mr. Ian Charles of Jambalasi, Grenada. So we thank them. We were supposed to be joined also by the chairperson of the Carriacou Regatta Committee, but she had some technical challenges that prevented her from participating on our program today. Viewers and listeners, thank you for your participation on the Bubb Report today. And next week, the Bubb Report will be on location in Grenada, covering all major events related to Carnival, Regatta, Emancipation, and all events around the summer festivities in Grenada that are already underway. I am your humble servant, Dr. Kellen Bubb. On behalf of the producers of the Bubb Report, we thank you for your participation this week. Have a safe and productive week. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.